Today we're in the Hutong area of Beijing. The area we're in is built around two man-made lakes, which are good for the feng shui of the neighborhood. It seems to be a rather old area in most respects, but as we're walking around, we're seeing gentrification pretty much at every turn, from the outside to the inside.
Hutong neighborhood, it's a type of traditional neighborhood, and it's called Hutong because the streets, the small alleyways that run through the neighborhoods are called hutong. And you basically have the small streets because the houses are all built in squarish or rectangular units around a courtyard. So there's a wall going around the outside of each courtyard unit that would face the street. And then each house will have a gate. And you can tell things about the original builder, original owner of the house by the gate. There's some little symbol. So behind me there's a gate, and above the door there are some beams that come out, have a little star pattern. And so if you have, say, 2 beams, then you're sort of normal, average person that owns the house. If you have, say, 4 beams above your house, it indicates a higher status. So the gate I'm sitting in front of is more of a luxury house. The person had a higher status. And we also learned that sometimes the stones that are outside of the gate have some special meaning as well. So the gate that I'm sitting here, it has a drum outside, so you could tell that the person was involved in the military. You could walk around and look at all the gates and try to figure out who lived there in the first place. We were lucky enough to go actually into one of the courtyard houses and talk to someone that lives in the neighborhood. Because I think if we were just walking around outside and trying to peer into people's gates, we wouldn't see that much. We went inside and spoke to a man who is retired now. He used to be an archaeologist. He did lab work trying to figure out how old things were. He said the oldest thing he'd ever tested was, I think, about 4,000-year-old bronze pieces, so it's a pretty cool job.
Seems like in a lot of ways the nuclear family here in China is more intact, and to have 3 generations, the older gentleman, his 2 sons, their wives, and then a granddaughter all living in this one housing unit. It's very family oriented. I think part of the deal is the children get to live less expensively, and there's somebody around to take care of the father as he ages.
We were sitting in a little living room next to the kitchen where he made tea for us, and the room looked out onto the courtyard. There were glass windows looking out into the courtyard, and he had a grapevine growing up on some fencing and a big pomegranate tree and some flowers that he liked to grow. Apparently he has a green thumb. And so it's just very pleasant and serene sitting in the courtyard. It seems insulated from the sound on the street, and it's sunny today, so it was just had a really nice feel to it. It felt more like you were in a village than in the middle of a huge city.
But I wonder if that's going to remain in this area, or, as the living standards increase around the country, Beijing being the capital and kind of the center of everything, if people are just going to be pushed out and forced to either move into apartments or move farther from the city center.
This particular neighborhood will be preserved, and it's being rebuilt and restored, but there are other neighborhoods farther out of the city center that I think are frequently being torn down so that nicer apartment buildings can be built, which seems like a shame because as a visitor, you see so much of the charm and you feel a very strong sense of history and strong sense of place in these neighborhoods. And they might not be the most convenient places to live, and I suppose a high-rise could be more comfortable, but it just has such a great sense of place in the neighborhoods that it does seem a shame that they have to be sometimes taken down for progress.
So this morning, to get to the Hutong, we got in a pedicab, which is essentially a 3-wheeled bicycle powered by the pedicab union. We were hoping they'd do drag racing, and you see all these pedicabs cruising through the streets of Beijing, much like the bike messengers in San Francisco. I guess they don't do that. Something about when they turn corners, it would flip over. very romantic thing to be in a pedicab in the Beijing sun, riding past ancient houses and seeing people walking around and just kind of going about their lives next to these lakes. Today we're at Wangfujing, which is one of the major shopping centers in Beijing. And it's really an amazing place because 15 years ago, none of this would have been possible. It's really just opened up, and what I take for granted being from the West and the ability to buy major brand name goods like Nike, McDonald's, KFC, or any of those things.
So I just spent a successful shopping afternoon at Wangfujing, which means the King's House well, and there's actually a well that was here. There's a plaque at the head of the street that shows where the well originally was. As you can see, it's a busy shopping street, pedestrian street. Historically, it's been a shopping street in Beijing, but I think just in the last few years, when there's been a lot of economic development and a lot of more open trading, there's been a lot of new buildings put in here and new shops, and now there are department stores and a shopping galleria right next to me, and it's all very upscale and glossy. It could be in any capital around the world, and it's not what I expected to see in Beijing. I didn't really think that there would be this fancy shopping street. It's an interesting contrast to this morning where we were in the hutong neighborhoods with the small alleys and just small corner shops, if there were shops at all. And it's just an interesting juxtaposition from that quiet, old, traditional Beijing to this, shiny mall with all the consumers running around.
You can buy, the hottest brands, American brands, you can buy Italian brands, you can buy thousands of products that just 15 years ago weren't here, they weren't available. I went into a Chinese medicine shop and picked up cordyceps, which are an ancient Chinese remedy. This has been a major shopping center for the last 200 years within Beijing, and people have been coming here doing commerce and trade, but it's only been just recently that they've expanded. No longer does everybody look the same. No longer does everybody buy the same thing, wear the same thing, live the same place, and do the same thing. This is a symbol of their individuality, and this is where they're coming to do their own thing and be who they are.
I was successful in my one shopping goal for China. I got to buy a Peking opera mask painted with the makeup from the opera. I wanted to buy that because my boyfriend collects masks from around the world, so I'll be able to give that to him when I get home as his present from the trip. So now that I've finished my shopping goal, I can maybe buy some things for myself.
You want to know about Beijing? I'd say come here.
Tonight's our night on the town in Beijing, and we started by going to the night market, which is in the shopping area near where we were this afternoon, and it was just an overwhelming thing. It's just one long strip of stalls, but there's so many people there, and they're really loud. Everyone's talking and trying to get the vendors' attention, and the vendors are yelling. And there's just food everywhere, all kinds of crazy things.
Local vendors are selling pretty much anything and everything to eat, from fried beetle to fried scorpion to fried octopus and squid and pretty much everything else that's imaginable.
Frogs' legs on skewers and octopus on skewers. The vendors were waving them around.
So we're looking for the fried scorpion. Haven't found it yet, but... Oh, we found it.
Thank you. All right, so it's the fried scorpion, and I'm glad it's dead because they had a live one over there. But no, one in Rome. It's really good. really, really good. Crunchy and a little salty, but yeah, I'm a fan. Welcome to China.
Head first. It is salty. Like a fried clam, but not as chewy. I'm from Maine. We have a lot of fried clams there. That was, yeah.
It's not bad.
Better than I thought. Better than I thought.
You want to try the live one?
I don't want to try that. There's a live one.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he tried to throw it down my pants.
No, dead one's good.
Yeah.
It was better than I thought. I was nervous about the fried scorpion. There's a little leg stuck on there.
And then we came down to the Houhai, which means the back lake, and is kind of near the hutong where we were earlier. And it's a long strip of bars and clubs that I guess up until 4 years ago didn't exist at all. The area was pretty much vacant. And in the last 4 years, bars and clubs and nightlife has sprung up, catering to young and old alike with a variety of music.
The cafes here are all just beautiful designs. Some of them are very modern, some of them are very hip or decorated in more of a sort of Southeast Asia feel, but this would be a super cool, super hip neighborhood in New York or in San Francisco, and I wish we had something like this in San Francisco because it would be just great to come with your friends and sit by the water and have a coffee or have a drink. It's just beautiful and peaceful.
It's really hot. It's definitely, if I were to live in Beijing, this is where I would be most of the time, right down here. It's been warm all day and all night, and I think that brings the people out and brings the city out, and everybody just seems to be having a good time and enjoying the atmosphere.
First of all, I do have to say that, ladies and gentlemen, I downed a whole scorpion in one bite this evening. I'm proud of myself. My mom thinks I'm squeamish about food because I don't like fish that much, but I eat a scorpion, Mom, so what do you have to say to that?
So today was big. We had a day full of activities. I'm exhausted.
We got to see more about what life would be like in Beijing, or what life would be like if you made a nice living, had a good job, and could kind of go enjoy yourself, I think. But it was a day of contrast and a day of a lot of stuff I didn't expect to see in Beijing.
New with the old. I mean, that for me was the theme of today, the new with the old. You know, technology combined with history, which just, it's very inspiring.
I'm sort of glad that we got to do today before we saw the Forbidden City, because now I have a sense of Beijing as a living city instead of sort of starting with the Forbidden City, which would be more Beijing as a museum.